news, candidate for the district attorney since Mark Hurlbert is now okay, I can do this. Wait, let me make sure my teeth are in. Since Mark Hurlbert is term limited out, and I've worked with Scott both as an animal control officer and as a victim's advocate. So here you go.
Gentlemen, thank you for having me on.
My pleasure, or our pleasure.
So, Scott, are you presently in the DA's office?
I am. I am currently second in command of the DA's office right now.
So you work for Mark Hurlbert?
I do. Yes, sir.
And you're running to replace him as on the Republican?
Yes, I'm running as a Republican. Yes, sir.
And let's see, why do you want to be DA? Isn't it being number 2 guy better?
Sometimes I think you might be right. But in my case, it is really a dream come true for me to become DA. This is someplace I've always wanted to be and something I've always wanted to do. I think I'm well qualified for the position, and I'm ready to take over the office at this point in time.
Can you tell us a little bit about your legal background and your educational background?
Sure. I've been an attorney 22 years now, entirely focused in the area of criminal law. I originally come from Kansas City, moved out to Colorado in 2005. Joined the district attorney's office in Glenwood Springs, and then the district attorney's in Colorado Springs, and joined the district attorney's office up here in 2007. I've been handling criminal cases my entire career, both as a prosecutor and a criminal defense attorney.
Could you talk a little bit the new legislation you worked on, which particularly relates to an area, victims advocacy? As you know, I've been one for 12 years, so I think that would be a really good thing to talk about.
Yeah, victims' rights and victims' interests is something that's of particular interest to me. A lot of your listeners down in Clear Creek might not have heard about it, but about two years ago, in July of 2010, we had a tragic death up in Lake County, which is also part of our jurisdiction. She was killed, the lady up there, Bonnie Flores, was killed by a stalker. And what her murder exposed was a loophole in the system. So basically what happened was, once she was shot and killed by her stalker, or actually before that, once he was charged, he was arrested, posted bond, and within a couple hours was out of jail without ever having seen a judge, without ever the district attorney's office being able to address the case. And then 2 weeks later, he walked next door and shot her. So what this legislation has done is close up that loophole by requiring that a defendant arrested for stalking see a judge before being able to post bond, having a protection order issued, having that read to him on the record, and having him acknowledge that on the record, all before he ever gets out of jail.
Excellent, because, you know, like I say, I've been a victim's advocate for 12 years. I also work with you as an animal control officer with the sheriff's office. Is there anything else that, well, I'm sure there are. Keep going, keep going.
Oh, well, as I said, that bill itself has passed through the House and the Senate, and because of the amendment, it's been changed to be called Bonnie's Law in honor of the victim in that case. Has to go back and be approved by the House, which should be no problem, and then we anticipate it'll be signed for the governor. So that's a huge success, especially in a divided House between Democrats and Republicans, for it to skate through with bipartisan support so easily is really a great thing, and I think the legislatures really saw what we were doing there in trying to help victims. Besides that, I'm also president of the Clear Creek County Advocates. As part of my interest there, I work with all the advocates and the board to ensure that they can provide services to victims here in Clear Creek County. Also do, as your listeners I'm sure know, our jurisdiction, the 5th Judicial District, also includes Lake, Summit, and Eagle counties above and beyond Clear Creek. So I also do a lot of things in those jurisdictions also to encourage victims, working on the violence protection team, working with the victim advocates in the other jurisdictions also.
What kind of changes, or would you bring any changes to the district attorney's office if you're elected?
I would bring some changes. I think the way the office is run, Mark and I kind of had different management styles. I would change that. There would probably be some personnel changes, some of the way cases are handled, especially juvenile cases. Working with the defense bar, having been a defense attorney myself, I realize how important it is to work with defense attorneys to make sure cases go through the system in a fair and just manner and in a quick fashion. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go, that's all right.
Oh, no.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but I was going to ask you about this case a couple of years ago that involved a driver who hit a bicyclist, and it turns out the driver was an investment banker in Vail,
Yes,
and he
sir.
ended up pretty much getting off. Do you think that was handled properly?
No, I don't. Mark and I disagreed on how to handle that case. He handled that case personally, and he's the boss, so he gets to make the decision on that case. But he and I disagreed on how to handle that. We disagreed on how to handle other cases too. But when your name is on the bottom of the letterhead, you get to make those decisions. So no, I think a different disposition in that case would have been appropriate. But Mark thought the disposition that did take place was appropriate, and he had his reasons for doing so. And like I said, he gets to make the decisions. So,
You had talked about the juvenile justice system, and could you be specific in terms of what changes you would like to see and how those cases are handled?
yeah, one of the big things I would like to see in the juvenile justice system right now, I supervise the juvenile diversion program, and I've tried to work in the past year since I've been supervising that on expanding the programs that are available to juveniles. Because once, if we can keep a juvenile out of the system, once he's touched the system in terms of the diversion program, statistics show over the course of his life that's going to save taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars in terms of both criminal justice and social services costs. So I think if we can address their situations in a more specific manner, that would save the taxpayers a lot of money and be beneficial to the juveniles also. One of the things I would like to do specifically for juveniles is a victim offender mediation program so that juveniles can have a better idea of how their actions specifically affect who they harmed. It's great to have juveniles do community service by picking up trash, by participating in local events, but if they can actually sit down in certain cases with the victim and have that victim explain to him exactly what harm came to them as a result of their actions. For example, a shopkeeper, a juvenile goes in and steals, $10 worth of stuff. Juvenile thinks all that is $10 worth of stuff. Doesn't understand that for the storekeeper, that's $10 worth of stuff, plus that store's reputation, plus his insurance rates, and plus he's not the only defendant who's stolen things, so it just adds up. And I think if juveniles can be made aware of that, I think it'll have a better effect on them to prevent them from committing further crime.
So